or in strategy without the presence of talent acquisition. When it comes to new country penetration strategies, new business opportunities, client acquisition, takeovers, what have you, everything boils down to how better are we going to deliver solutions and our capabilities to the client. And everything is around people there. It's all around people. So, and given the way the whole environment has progressed, with clients coming in asking for more and more people to be based closer to them rather than in nearshore or offshore centers, it's becoming a big challenge and an opportunity at the same time for talent acquisition to be working closely with business, looking at strategizing, how to get the best people at the lowest cost, where they are available, and deliver business to the client in a seamless manner. So we are no different. We are no different. And just to give a perspective, I mean, I'll probably just talk about myself. I've been with Infosys for 16 years now, and I've sort of straddled across different facets in talent acquisition, all along in talent acquisition and HR, till about a couple of years ago when we actually carved out talent acquisition away from HR. So we brought it under our supply chain function, really, right? Brought it under our people and technology operations, so that there is a unified, one single team that looking at internal talent available, external talent that's coming in, different channels of recruiting, and trying to make sure that people are being put into the projects at the right time, at the least cost as well. So today, I take care of contract staffing or contingent staffing globally for Infosys. I take care of campus recruiting in India, two different extremes, right? So one is contract, other one is campus, right at the entry level. I also come in between for leadership hiring at Infosys. And we have, of course, a team that looks at the lateral recruiting process in India and stuff. I also handle client recruiting activities, because there are certain clients which are trying to set up base in India, and they need help from somebody like Infosys to bring in our expertise and share experiences and help them scale. So I drive that initiative for Infosys as well. So we've done some phenomenal work in that space. But the whole essence of this conversation that I really wanted to have was about what are some of the things that we are seeing in the market, and how has Infosys responded or proactively addressed many of those in a way that we are able to scale up to probably what I would call the highest ever new hire onboards into the organization. So just last fiscal, for the first time in the history of Infosys, we hired more than 50,000 people into the organization. And it's a lean team, right? When we compare ourselves with some of our peers, we probably are less than 50% of the team strength as compared to the others. That's also because of how well we have enabled or adapted or leveraged technology to the way we want to work, and made the whole process paperless, seamless, well integrated with our overall ATS and so on and so forth, right? Each technology has its own challenges, but then the way you use it, where do you bring in the interventions, and how do you sustainably take it through the end-to-end process, while also ensuring that the candidate experience is at an all-time high. So we've looked at all of those parameters or aspects of the recruiting or supply chain cycle to address each of those portions out there by bringing in the right mix of technology, people interfaces, process automation, and so on and so forth. So this is exactly what I really wanted to speak about, right? So you might find you might find a slightly higher flavor of the US piece out here or global piece out here, not as much of in India. Because India, I think we've kind of cracked the code as far as scale is concerned, but it's a lot more about how to bring in agility in the process, and how are we able to make sure that we are able to bring people to a T-fit in that sense as far as an organization is concerned, right? So forgive me if I'm speaking a little more about the US as well, because, well, fortunately or unfortunately, my portfolio also leans very heavily towards the US because that's the largest market at this point of time from a business standpoint. So what are some of the challenges or dynamics that we see in the business environment? These are some shifts, as I would call, right? The first one, protectionism. Well, the presidents across the country, across the world, presidents wanting to ensure that companies who are trying to sell or make business in those particular geographies, they're hiring people locally, and they're trying to make sure that the same people are deployed locally as well. So it is no longer a lucrative landed resource model, which this whole IT industry has survived on or thrived upon for several years, right? We've always believed in saying that, look, I can file for H1s for my people, send them to the US, or work authorizations or work permits for the UK, for example, send them down there, and they work at the minimum wage levels or the thresholds that are really set up by the governments, and they are able to contribute more and more revenues to the organization. So which is why you would have seen that in those early 2000s and stuff, or 90s till the early 2000s, the growth of all of these organizations was exponential, largely because you were able to send people on visas, work visas, to many of these countries. Then came 2008, Madoff, then the regulations started. Now it's so difficult nowadays. The visa regulations and the regime has become so stringent that it is no longer, you can never be sure that even if somebody's got a lottery, for the US in the case, somebody's got a lottery H1, there's still no assurance that person is going to land in the US. Because the documentation expectations, the scrutiny that's being implemented or applied by USCIS and ICE and so on and so forth has become so stringent. And coupled with this, there are some bad apples out there in the market. There are, forgive me for saying this, there are some consulting firms, very small consulting firms, whose only business is about body shopping. They only do body shopping. And they create a lot of issues for the organizations like Infosys and our peers, because they create fake profiles in the market. They would fudge, they would force, they would do all kinds of stuff to make sure that some of their people are going to the US. And when USCIS finds fraud in some of those, then the regulations become tighter. If you ask me, has Mr. Donald Trump, has he brought in any new legislations? Not really. These rules always existed as far as I know. What he's done is to make sure that these rules are being implemented and enforced very stringently. And that has led to a lot of issues for companies like Infosys, because we are no longer getting the equal amount of visas that we really wanted. So now what we do is we had to overcome that challenge. Thankfully for us, our chairman, founding father, Mr. Murthy, right from 2002, when I joined Infosys, he's been saying this. That guys, there'll be a time very soon when you're no longer going to be able to start sending people to the US or any other countries as you think you can do. You will have to invest in local talent capability building, hiring capability building. So we started that journey many, many years ago, but half-hearted attempts, small numbers. But now we hire about, just for the US, for example, we hire about 1,600 people every quarter. That's about 6,500 people every year in the US. And they're all locals in the US right now, right? In addition to that, we hire another about maybe 6,000 people across the rest of the world outside of India. India continues to be the largest, and I'll show some numbers at the end, right? Because based on what all have we done, what have been the impact of many of those in the output that we have seen, the contributions that we've been able to make to the organization. So the localization is something that I've spoken about, need for localization, talent needs. Gone are those days when you could hire somebody with a .NET skill and just put them on the project and expect that person will learn. But today, the client landscape has become so complicated, complex, because just like Infosys is, and many of you are also doing, right? You have a core system, and as and when you require additional functionalities, the opportunities are, look, build or buy, right? The building sometimes does not happen if you have an ERP which, and the company does not want to make those changes, or it becomes prohibitively expensive to do some customizations. So what you end up doing is you buy tools. You buy some nice tools from the market. You're struggling with integrations with those ATSs. Let's say you still do that, right? Now tomorrow, the same thing which the client is doing as well. They have their core systems, they have additional systems or tools and whatever they are acquiring for different parts of the business, which all have to be integrated. So now it is no longer a case where you can hire people with a base level skill and then start believing that they'll be able to cater to the client requirements. Combination skills has become a very common thing now. So you need people who have the ability to, for example, who have the ability to, do coding and, work on the J2E framework or do coding in Java. But more importantly, these are people who should also have an ability to work on Hadoop. So it's like Java plus a Hadoop, or Java plus an Angular kind of stuff, right? An Angular 6, and every now and then technology keeps changing as well. Upgradations happen, some new technologies come, some wipe out and stuff. So you're always on the lookout for people who have combination skills. That's a huge challenge in the industry today. If you look at the markets outside of India, that's a very big challenge. India is also a challenge, but then you at least have an ability to kind of spend some time, train, enable, mentor, and do a lot more. Low unemployment rates, not just in the US. I think US is boasting about the lowest ever unemployment rates in decades, right? And what we've seen is anybody who is worth his or her salt is at the negotiating table. Our price points are going up. The candidates are coming and demanding for more and more money, more and more benefits, and so on and so forth, right? The other thing that's also happening is the point number 5 out there, gig economy. US is becoming an extremely big gig economy base. When I say that, what this means is more and more people are wanting to work as contract workers at their own pace, whenever they want, wherever they want, and quit and move on to some of the projects and stuff. More and more people are wanting that. They want that independence. So those rates are exceedingly high. So typically, the difference between a full-time recruit versus a contract worker, we would easily spend more than 30%. 30% or 40% of a full-time cost is your contractor cost. So hence, the moment we start having to hire more and more contractors into the organization, and when the market is also becoming very contractor-centric, your cost structures go up. What do you do as an organization? Because you have commitments to the market in terms of your margins, you have commitments to analysts, everybody is watching. So there is a need for completely rethinking the entire talent supply model itself, right? Dynamism in business I've spoken about. So there's a lot of dynamism when I'm saying this. There have been several instances in the past when clients have also come back and said that, look, business as usual stuff, which is the run tools or run technologies, they will continue to invest. Because without that, the company will break. Their mainframe systems or legacy systems, whatever they have, companies are willing. When I'm saying companies, the clients are willing to invest money in those. Because they're saying that if we stop that, we might as well shut down our business. But the discretionary spends, which comes into a lot of innovation, new things, new ways of working, ability to build new tools and technologies to automate and streamline and stuff, there's always a, should I do it, should I not do it kind of a thought which many of the clients also take up. And that gets all the more compounded when there is uncertainty in their markets, in their customer markets. When they see uncertainty, there is a clamp down on their own spends. And that impacts every other stakeholder and supply partner in the ecosystem that they really work with. So these are some very, very critical things that we have seen. The amplification of the cycles have become very high. The sinusoids are shorter now, which means that a lot of upheavals, ups and downs which are happening. There's been a lot of fear about another downturn, which was probably predicted by somebody who's studied the curves, how many years has the downturns been happening. And there was a prediction that last year would have been a downturn year, but fortunately no. But nobody knows now. Nobody knows what's really happening, right? Who's pressing the button on this? Who's playing around with this? Nobody knows. So at this point of time, given the way the sinusoids are, the way the market is, the way the industry is behaving, and the way the client landscape is behaving, it becomes extremely important that as organizations, we become very, very agile in the way we staff people. And those are some experiments that I really want to show you here. What have we done, right? We addressed the localization problem. We hired 10,000 people in the US in the last 2 years, all locals, right? We never had a brand in the US. We were considered as just another, technology firm, consulting firm, who sends people out there, takes away their jobs, those kind of aspirations and stuff. But we completely transformed that. We have replicated in India in the US at this point of time. So we have innovation hubs technology innovation hubs, which are like our development centers across 5 different geographies, 5 different locations in the US. And these locations have been chosen based on client centricity, concentration, and access of talent pool as well. So we hire locally from the markets. We hire people from the colleges out there. We hire people with liberal arts skills, liberal arts backgrounds, and not just STEM backgrounds, right? The liberal arts guys go directly into the digital space for visualization, user experience, and so on and so forth. We train them and enable them to do that. The STEM guys, anyway, people go through the usual, technology-led stuff. They go through a little bit of training, and they get on with client projects. But the important point for us is when we set up these technology innovation hubs, we then gained an ability to manage people at one single place. So a typical model is that in the past, when we have client projects that are running, you will more often find that the people from, let's say, Infosys or any of our peers would be operating from the client's office. They wouldn't be operating from, the parent's office. We transformed that. We've changed that with the technology centers. Now we have an ability to manage those, 500,000, 2,000 people who are coming and joining us at each of those centers. We have HR folks. We have policies and processes which are customized to the US, tailor-made for that. And we are able to manage them a lot better, right? Enablement, training, mentoring, everything, right? So the technology innovation hubs have been a very, very useful thing for us, and that's kind of helped crack the code. Clients have loved us for that. Clients come and, they love to take a look at our technology hubs and say, hey, this is where we want the work to be done. Get us more work done out of these locations. Get us more work done out of these places. We want to see more people here and stuff. And the clients sometimes come and say, yes, I don't mind paying a little extra for this as well, because this is phenomenal what you guys have achieved in that sense. So that kind of helped us. We flipped the usual model of hiring people, then training, then deploying. There's a new experiment we did, which has thankfully worked out phenomenally well for us. We said, why can't we hire people who are already pre-trained in the US? And it's a very different market, right? Unlike in India, where you will have people who are hanging around without a job, who will pay money to get trained out there with agencies or organizations, and then they will float those resumes and profiles to companies like Infosys and say, hey, would you like to assess some of these people as well? While when you look at the US, given how the landscape has been, given how the unemployment rates are, we were wanting to look for people who are not just pure freshers, but who have a little bit of technology awareness, knowledge. We tied up with certain partners, right? We made sure that they go out to the market, hire people, train these people on what we want them to, in the way that we want them to be trained. And at the end of it, we are able to just go and hire those people. Are we hiring 100% of those people? Not really. But are we hiring maybe 90%? Absolutely, yes. So what this really means is, in addition to the usual campus recruiting process that we undertake in the US, where people come and join us in July and in January, February, with the fall and the spring seasons, when those campus recruits come and join us, they go through training program for about 6 weeks, right? Even though they get a lot of pre-enablement through digital mediums and technology and stuff, which I'll speak about in a little while, they come and join us, but by the time they get ready for a project, it's still sometime in September or October. So when we flipped that model, when this vendor started going out to the market to hire people, train them, and then we go to the market and hire those people, go to that vendor to hire those people, they are able to come and be productive for us from the month of July itself. And that's a large month. July is a big month for us. July, August, September is usually an upswing kind of a quarter for the entire IT industry, which is a Q2, effectively, in our financial calendar, right? That's usually one of the best quarters for the IT industry at this point of time, right? It's been running so for several years now. So we have people out there available at that point of time. So we flipped that model. Today, about 40% of all our entry-level hires in the US comes through this train-to-hire model. The hire, train, deploy model works out, which is a standard model, works out to be the remaining 60%. But given that we've hired over 2,000 freshers in the US in the last 2 years, 800 has been the number of people that we've hired. So which has given us a phenomenal, ability and confidence that we can actually scale this up a lot more in the US. Likewise, we've done similarly in various other geographies as well. Adjacent skills hiring, refactoring, big thing that we did, very important thing. So this is exactly what I was saying, right? Combination skills are becoming a challenge. You don't find people in the market with combination skills. If you find them, their rates are so high that you cannot afford them. The compensation expectations are so high. So what we did was we got into embarked on this particular journey of trying to hire people who are in adjacent skills, right? We looked at two things. We looked at people who are within Infosys, and we looked at people who are outside in the market as well. Identified people with adjacent skills, made them go through very short training programs, spread over, let's say, 4 weeks. And the 4 weeks is immersive training, which we provide, plus they have a lot of digital means of learning as well. So we created a completely new platform, a learning platform for all our Infosians to learn on the go kind of a scenario, mobile based. You can sit and learn whenever you want, however you want and stuff. So that's also worked out really well for us. Two things that I will speak about: acceleration of deployment and strong tech adoption in recruiting. So acceleration of deployment is essentially about how quickly are you able to put these people on projects, right? That's a very important point for us. And when I was talking about this, you have your campus recruits, you have your full-time hires, you have your contract staffing folks also, contract guys also. So we came out with a completely new model, which based on historical data that we saw. We are today in a scenario situation where when a PM logs in a demand for a resource, the system tells him or her that, dear friend, based on what we've seen in the past, the chance of fulfilling this particular requirement is, let's say, 80% if you go the subcon route. Chance of fulfilling this is maybe 70% if you go the full-time hiring route. Now here are the two things. If you hire through a full-time, the timelines you're going to take is so much. If you go through a subcon, the timeline is going to be so much. However, if you go through a subcon, your cost differential is going to be so much as well. So hence, what we're also telling them is, for this particular requirement that you have, while we would recommend you to go for a subcon, but please make sure that you follow up and you own up this fulfillment of a full-time requirement through talent acquisition team within a certain time period. Right? So to that extent, what this means is that we are trying to fulfill a position with the fastest possible approach while making sure that the profitability of the organization does not take a dip. It should not become negative. The net revenue that we earn from a particular resource cannot be negative. It just doesn't make sense. And it has to be positive by a certain margin. Otherwise, it still doesn't make sense because of costs and stuff that you want. So today we are in a process, or we have a system in place which kind of tells that to the project manager. So we are in effect integrated all of these supply channels available as well, right? So this has kind of worked out exceedingly well for us. When the usage of AI and ML tools and so on and so forth, we've automated a lot of the hire to retire cycles in Infosys. It's no longer a scenario where there are a lot of manual interventions out there. So for example, before we even publish a requirement outside to the world, we have already used an AI tool, an ML tool, to look at our internal database. That's globally. Right? Look at our internal database, identify candidates based on the resumes who might be meeting some of those job description demands as well. And then we've used bots to initiate conversations and touch points or connects with the candidates to get to know who are the people who are keen to be moved ahead in the process. As on date, about 18% of positions don't even go out to the market because we are able to use our internal tools to, fulfill those positions. And it's not that resumes aren't coming. Resumes come by the hordes across various geographies through different channels, right? There are employee referrals. There are, we boast of our employee referral program because we have about 60 to 65% of all our hires coming through employee referrals. So it's phenomenally working really well. Then you have people coming through the usual, our career sites, through Facebook and LinkedIn and God knows what all. So we are almost everywhere, right? To make sure that we catch the person, wherever, whenever, however, in that sense. That's how it is. But what works for them as well. So we want to make sure that, we're not invading the privacy and stuff. So we are there, so people are able to apply. So resumes come in that sense. So that's the other thing that we have really done. Importantly, when it comes to, I'll just flip to India. The challenge in India is very different, right? While in the US it's about availability of talent. What was that? 0 minutes? Oh, I'm done, sorry. Okay. So challenge in India is different. You have people available, but quality is a concern, right? So we used extensively, we've created a model using R, which tells us before we hire a person, what is the chances that this person is going to be a high performer in Infosys? So we use that to make selection decisions. And the accuracy is 75%. So 75% of the times, before we make an offer to a person on campus, we already know whether that person is going to be a high performer or a top performer in our training program. We use that very heavily, right? So I can use some extra time, right? Because the last one spilled over. Yeah? So we are using that extensively. And we use that to prioritize our date of joining as well. So that the best guys or best people are coming in and, getting an early date of joining. Implemented the internship program. So students complete their 7th semester. So the campus recruiting happens in 6th semester. We use their the campus recruiting happens in the 7th semester. We use up the entire 8th semester of those candidates, invite them to come and spend the time at Infosys, Mysore. They go through a full-fledged residential internship program. They go through training. We provide them training, and we also make them go through an industry standard project as well. Last year, we brought 3,500 people through that. And the advantage, when these people go back to the college, finish up their final exams of Viva, OC, and whatever, they come and join us. We deploy them in 2 weeks, right? So this has given us a lot of impetus in being able to staff projects and positions and programs in a very, very aggressive manner. There are a lot of others that I can really speak about, but then more time, sorry. The outcomes. This is what I wanted to really speak about. The culmination of a lot of these things that we've undertaken at Infosys over the last couple of years. Well, look at it, 56,000 people onboarded in the last 1 year. Yeah. Laterals 22,547, freshers 20,000 people, global hiring, which is outside of India, 8,200 people, subcons 5,700 people. And the subcons is only in the US, by the way, not globally. That's about 7,800 people. What have we attained at the end of the day? We've started, well, since the last couple of years, we've started tracking our candidate experience scores as well. So it's a survey that we undertake with many of the candidates. The surveys, the candidate experience scores, thanks to a paperless process, our ability to connect with candidates through various apps and platforms and also pre-enable them, gone up to 4.6 on a scale of 5. Joins to offers, our conversion ratios have gone up. And both in India as well as the geographies outside. We've reduced the cycle time by almost a third. That's because of usage of AI, ML, and process automation as well, right? Cost per hire down 11% because we are very clearly measured on cost per hire because we get budgets based on that. So if the organization wants us to hire 10,000 people in the next quarter, they'll give budgets according to 10,000 because they know that there's a metric to it. For every hire, you need to have, there's a cost per hire as well, which I'm sorry I can't disclose, but that's how it works. Diversity, 33% overall. India is a lot better in terms of diversity. When I look at the India campus, it's almost 50% of all our hires or offers are diverse. When I'm saying there's gender diversity, right? And which is a great thing for Infosys. And we take pride in the number of women who come and join Infosys as well. Paper usage, absolutely 0 because we made it paperless. So carbon credits should come our way, actually. So we've not yet started tracking it. Stakeholder commendations, innumerable. So we get a lot of accolades, we get a lot of rewards, a lot of prize money that keeps coming from the business folks because we partner with them and are able to solve a lot of their problems. So a lot of rewards that keep coming to the team, which is always a good thing. So at the end of it, I think as a function, we are very, very close to the leadership in Infosys because, like I said, in any growth discussions, it is talent acquisition that comes to the forefront. We have to be there, otherwise there's no way that this can work through. So we are extremely close to the leadership of Infosys, and it's always on first name basis and stuff. So it's a great feeling of sense of pride that look, man, you speak to a Praveen and Salil and people just like that. But the fact is, well, the expectations that they have is so much out of you that you have to deliver, and if you fail, then it's a very different thing altogether, right? You cannot fail an organization which is trying to grow so much in the organization.